Hi everyone, Kyle here from Wide Awake PH. In today's episode, we will be talking about an interesting brewer called the Coffee Consulate RS16. The Coffee Consulate RS16 has been around for a pretty long time now. If I'm not mistaken, I I found out about it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Even back then, I was already so intrigued by the brewer's concept, the brewer's design, but I was very put off from purchasing a unit because number one, it was coming all the way from Germany, so it was pretty, difficult to ship to all the way here to the Philippines. Number two, back then they only offered it in a glass version, so as you can imagine, I was very wary of shipping something so small and fragile all the way from Germany to the Philippines, with a high risk of breakage. If I'm not mistaken, it was around like $250 at the time, and I just couldn't justify buying it. But fast forward to late 2024 when I acquired this brewer, they released this version, which is a Tritan version, complete with this three-pronged stand so that you can use it on any glass. Additionally, it is available in Taiwan, so the shipping isn't as long and scary and as expensive, so I opted to purchase a unit. For me, this is such an interesting brewer, an interesting design, because as you can see, it doesn't use paper filters. If you read the marketing material in the website of the Coffee Consulate, when they talk about this brewer, they call it the RS16 because you're supposed to use 16 grams of coffee and ideally only use 200 ml of water. And the pitch is, because there's no paper filter, you get the full spectrum of the coffee, or the full flavor spectrum of the coffee that you are brewing. What does that mean? Well, when we're brewing coffee, coffee has oils in it, right? So you can think about the way your French press brews taste, or your espressos and Americanos taste. Basically, you'll notice that they taste a bit different, right? Because we don't filter out the oils because there's no paper filter. So we get a very different flavor experience by not using these paper filters. So I've always been intrigued by this brewer because of that. It's essentially a percolation brewer, of course, that doubles down on the idea that coffee grounds are self-filtering. So I really wanted to taste test this because if the pitch is that this will give you a very big, intense sort of body, then it would work extremely well with our style of roast, light roasts, because those are known to not have as much body as medium and medium dark roasts, for example. And in addition to that, I think I had a feeling it would pair extremely well with these two grinders. So the Kinu equipped with the pourover burr, and the Zerno equipped with the slow feed auger, as well as the Brewers version 1 by SSP. So in this video, we'll brew this Coffee Consulate RS16 and talk about how I like brewing with it and what flavor experience you can expect when brewing with this using lightly roasted coffee. Now that we've ground the coffee on my Kinu, I'm using a grind size of 4.2. For the dose, we usually like to dose 13 to 16 grams for this brewer. In this case, we're using a dose of 14 grams. As you can see, the moment I dosed the coffee, some coffee grounds have already entered my glass. So keep that in mind, we'll talk about that later. Alright, so we're gonna brew. We like brewing with a ratio of 1:14 to 1:17 with this. Of course, 1:14 will give you like a bigger, more flavorful experience. and the flavors are going to be very intense. And then 1:17 will give you something more gentle on the palate. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But for this brew, we'll do 1:16. For the brewing temperature, I'm brewing with a temperature of 96 degrees Celsius, but it depends on you. 96 degrees Celsius, so a relatively higher brewing temperature will give you something sweeter and a bit more bodied, whereas dropping down the temperature between 90 to 93 degrees Celsius will give you higher acid kind of expression of the coffee. We will do our classic 3-pour recipe. So again, 14 grams times 16, 224. So we'll split it between 375 ml pours. We will wait until 35 seconds before starting the next pour. And then the last 15 ml, I like doing a center pour. Okay, and then finally for the last pour at 1 minute 30 seconds, we'll pour our final 75 ml. If you notice, we have stalled. This is actually a very common occurrence for this brewer, and it's because the coffee grounds have clogged the opening of the brewer. So what I like to do to keep things really clean and juicy, I will agitate at around 2 minutes to 2 minutes 15 seconds. So now it's 2 minutes 15 seconds. Watch, I'll agitate like this and essentially move the grounds away from the holes of the brewer. And you can see that just by doing that, all the liquid was drained down in less than 10 seconds. But as you can see, our coffee is loaded with sediments right now. And while yes, this can give you a really nice and juicy cup of coffee, the problem is it lacks clarity for me. And if you know my sense of taste or my taste preferences, I really like my coffees with a really good flavor separation and very high clarity. So what we can do to overcome this is this. Get the AeroPress, get a paper filter, and run this here. And I'm so happy that I figured this out, because this really elevated the coffee experience for this particular brewer. And the nice thing is, all we really have to do is press. We don't have to press gently like we usually do with the usual AeroPress brews. Just press, because there's not much coffee grounds or sediments anyway. That's the amount of sediments that we got. So now let's taste. Let's give this a taste, and let's discuss the coffee experience that you can expect if you use this and brew it this way. Honestly, this RS16 is and was and now is my favorite combination for certain coffees and certain roast styles, because what it really does is it balances out our coffee's acidity by giving it a lot of body, a lot of structure. If if you have a coffee and you're struggling with acidity, you find it like mouth puckering, you find it quite overwhelming. What the Coffee Consulate RS16 does is it gives you so much more body and so much more tactility in your brew. It gives your brews this roundness to it. It gives you a feeling of sweetness, and then the acidity comes on. So, and bear in mind that the acidity isn't compromised at all. You're still getting the same level of acidity you would in normal pour over, like if you brew with a Kono or if you brew with your V60 or Origami. But because the body is up by so much more, it has this really beautiful balance. So I know a lot of super coffee enthusiasts love the acidity. It's like they really look for that experience. But I think if I were to brew for people who are just getting into the hobby and they're not really ready for a very tart coffee experience, but I still want to present to them the uniqueness of lightly roasted coffee, this is really the way to go, because By filtering it out like this, we get the cleanliness of cup, we get the flavor separation we're looking for in our filter coffees. But at the same time, we have the unique and distinctive acidity of the coffees that we're brewing, plus the addition of a really beautiful, round, tactile body that really contributes to a feeling of sweetness. It's really a unique brewing experience for sure. It was weird to use, and it gives you a very unique coffee experience as well. I personally really enjoy using it, but of course, it has a lot of downsides. So that's what we'll talk about in the next section. We'll talk about the drawbacks behind this design, as well as how I like to use it and how it might fit into your lifestyle. So what are the drawbacks of the Coffee Consulate RS16? Well, as you saw earlier, one of the drawbacks is the clogging. You had to use a stirrer, like you need to use a spoon, a stirrer, a chopstick in order to move the grounds in the bottom around so that the water can... You can argue that that is a problem for a few reasons. Number one, it's inconsistent. Sometimes it clogs, sometimes it doesn't. It also really depends on your grinder. If you have a grinder that produces a lot of fines, then it will clog up really bad. If you have a coffee that creates a lot of fines, like your Ethiopian coffees for example, it will clog more. If you're using a finer grind size, definitely it will clog more. The flow rate will be a lot slower than that, and it will really compound, like flow rate wise. If you grind fine with an Ethiopian coffee, then you will have a very slow flow rate, right? Because you can only have so many holes here, and it will definitely clog. So that, of course, is a problem. The second problem is cleanup. So, I will throw away the coffee grounds. I'll demonstrate for you. Okay, so when you clean up, it leaves a mess, right? It's not as simple as your normal pour over, wherein, you get the paper filter, throw it out, then you rinse the brewer, and then you're done. Here, you really need to rinse this and keep this clean, because if you don't, this will stain. Assuming that you've already rinsed the Coffee Consulate RS16 through your sink, through running water, you will also face the problem of having very stubborn coffee grounds stick here in the holes of the brewer. And in order to remove said holes, you would have to get a brush and really pick it one by one like this. This is a drawback for a lot of people who don't like dealing with this amount of cleaning. Definitely a downside. The next question is, how does this fit into my rotation and possibly your rotation? And is it worth adding to your brewer collection? Well, for me, I enjoy using this, for one, as a break from brewing with your normal pour overs. I'm pretty sure this will be quite difficult to use in a competition setting. It's just quite a bit of work. And it doesn't look elegant, right? Like after you brew, you have to decant and then you have to filter it with an AeroPress. It just doesn't look so seamless in terms of, competition setting, despite the brew being extremely delicious and extremely well balanced. Just the workflow is annoying. And yeah, of course, that's a drawback. If you like that extra step of filtering the coffee. So if you have any suggestions on how to filter out the brew of the RS16 better, more efficiently, please feel free to share in the comments and let's have a discussion on this, because if we can get this even better, then man, I think we have something really special here in terms of the brewing output, because it's flat out delicious and unique. I haven't had a brewer combination that has impressed me this much in a long time. Another really great reason to use this is for traveling. You can see it's a very compact brewer, and you don't need to use filter papers, which is a bonus. And you definitely don't really need a fancy gooseneck kettle when brewing with this. You can use your generic hotel boilers when brewing with this. So that works extremely well. And I also love traveling with this thing. So I think these two really make a great traveling kit, and I'm crazy, so I actually travel with this thing because coffee is life, right? So the Bob makes delicious coffee, as we've discussed in our previous review. The Bob with this is already making fantastic coffee. So if I want to change it up, right? If I don't want to use this anymore, I'll just use this with that, and I have a totally different coffee experience, a very different flavor spectrum, and that's always fun when you're traveling and you want to have a good coffee before you start your day, or you have a very full day ahead of you for traveling and you want to have really delicious coffee first thing in the morning. I know that's my issue, so that makes me happy. That's pretty much it. It's a very flawed brewer, definitely. Lots of workarounds in order to get it to taste the way it tastes right now. But to be honest with you, I find the product very charming. It gets better the more you interact with it. If you really love light roasted coffee and you've been looking for more body and more sweetness in your brews, you should really take a look at the Tritan version of this. I mean, they have very expensive glass and metal versions. I guess you can get those if you end up falling in love with the Tritan. Any case, yeah, I think it deserves a closer look, especially for lightly roasted coffee. That's it for today's review. I hope you learned something new, and I hope we have a newfound appreciation now for the coffee Consulate RS16, because I have not found anyone else on YouTube who speaks English that's talking about this brewer, and I think it's really underrated, just like the Kinu Pub. In fact, I think the Kinu Pub is even less underrated than this. This is like, it flew under everyone's radar, no one talks about it, and yeah, I think try this combination out. I think it will surprise you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. That really helps out a lot. And see you again soon.